In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how I eliminated a substantial amount of sway or sliding in this particular student's golf swing, allowing him to compress the golf ball much more consistently. And it was a lot easier than he thought it was going to be because he's been actually working on this for years, he said. And one simple change we made got him on his way. So if you deal with sliding or swaying or excess movement in your golf swing, stay tuned. And I'm going to show you the before and after, what I did with him and how it can help you hit the ball better. So let's get to work. So the first thing I have to say is what we are going to talk about today is not the only root cause for a sway or a slide in a golf swing. There are many other root causes. This particular one starts with the setup. It starts from the beginning of the golf swing before anything else happens. This is going to be part one of a series of videos I'm going to do on the sway or the slide. So if you deal with any of this stuff, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Or if you are into this type of golf content, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. I massively appreciate it. Over the 25 years that I've been teaching and the tens of thousands of lessons I've given, a high percentage of golfers do deal with a lateral move off of the golf ball. When you think of the golf swing is a rotational move that works around a center. Now, in a perfect world, we would be robots with one line here and one line here, and we are rotating around a center line that does not move. We could control the low point every single time. We could control delivery every single time. We're humans. Our bodies are not built like that. We have all these different folds and moves and things that can prohibit us from being as consistent as we can. So we absolutely have to simplify everything. And that's exactly what I did with this particular student. So when he started out, he had about an 8 to 9 inch sway from back to forward in the golf swing. So I'm going to use Sportsbox a lot today. It is a 3D motion capture software that I use in all of my in-person and remote coaching lessons to get a three-dimensional look at what the particular player is doing, and it's massively helpful. If you want more information on Sportsbox, I'll put a link down below. So on the screen right now, I'm going to put his before swing, and you'll notice just how much movement his pelvis is moving this way and this way as he creates rotation. We have to minimize that movement overall. There is always going to be some lateral motion in a golf swing. There is going to be. We cannot make it zero just the way our body is, but we have to minimize it. Why? Well, if our center is moving this way and this way, as we are swinging a golf club around our body, the amount of times that we're going to be consistent with our low point and the strike is going to be minimal. Sure, you can time it here and there and hit a great shot if other things are good, but for the most part, you're never going to be consistent. So we have to minimize the amount of motion that we have overall. And like I said before, what I'm going to talk about right now is just one piece that can cause it. Not every single piece, not everybody that deals with a sway or a slide, this is their culprit, this is their root cause. There are other things. But I want everybody out there to make sure what I'm going to talk about is good in your golf swing, because most likely it can improve other things as well. So let's hop into it. So I have the pressure mat down here because I want to show you a few things. So you can see on the screen what this is measuring. It's just measuring the pressure into the ground. I'm going to go on my toes. I'm going to go on my heels. I'm going to go on my right side. I'm going to go on my left side. Now, balance setup is arguably one of the most important pieces of a golf swing, and yet it is one of the most under-practiced pieces by amateur players out there of really everything. And it's something that you can work on at home. Again, I've said before, you don't necessarily need a pressure mat. There are tools out there that you can get that are less expensive than a higher end pressure mat, or a force plate or force plates, which go into the tens of thousands of dollars. But you need to have a balanced address position in order for you to dynamically move the golf club efficiently. So let's talk about this setup first. In your setup, we need to have toe to heel balance. We also need to have trail foot to lead foot balance. The one thing about the setup with an iron, we can have a little bit more lead foot. We definitely don't want to have a lot of trail foot at address. And this is where this student started his troubles. He started his setup slightly on the trail side. His right knee was outside his foot. So if I stand here and show you from this angle, he was here. So his right knee was outside the foot. So I jump back over here to the display because I want to show you the before in 3D. And I put a line where his pelvis is right now. And you can see where his center of his pelvis is. It is obviously further back than center at address. Other things you will notice his entire setup, from his midsection, his upper torso, is over towards the right leg. And you'll notice as I go off of the golf ball with him, you'll see how his trail knee starts to get significantly outside his foot. His trail hip is getting significantly outside his foot. And that's exactly what I was just talking about. And it all started with that setup. Now, if I go and just focus in on how much pelvis sway. So what Sportsbox does, so it sets pelvis sway at 0. 0 meaning this is his setup. And I'm going to show you how much in inches his pelvis is actually moving off of the golf ball and then back towards the target. You'll also see chest sway, you also see chest turn and pelvis turn as well. So as he brings the club back, you'll see just how much, even to parallel with his arms, his pelvis has moved 3.5 inches away from his initial starting point. And again, his starting point was back already. Gets to the top of his swing and he maxes at about 4 inches, 4.1 inches away from the target from where he started. Now, as he transitions, and again, you'll see his trail knee, you'll see his center of pelvis is really close to his trail foot at that point. And as he transitions down, you'll see how much that pelvis down here has to move just to get centered. Now you're adding momentum into the mix. And by the time he gets back to the ball, impact, he has now moved 3.8 inches forwards of where he started. So you do the math, 4.1, go to impact 3.8. I mean, that's almost 8 inches of travel with his pelvis. That's a lot. And again, all of this started with his address position. So let's go back to the lesson T, talk a little more about it. And if you do like this video and are getting something out of it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the like button as well. My job is to help you become a better player, and hopefully by using my students and my experiences, I can achieve that. So I'd love you to join this community. Now let's get back to the lesson T. So I'm wearing a hoodie because I love wearing hoodies, and it happens to have strings, and I'm wearing pants to have strings today to show my point here. So think of this as a plumb bob. So a plumb bob, a string with a weight on the bottom. If I get into my setup, if I have good balance setup, my strings for the most part are gonna hang equidistant relative to my right and left foot. Now, if I start a little bit forward, you'll see them move a little forward. If I start back, you'll see them move back. And this is actually a drill that I will give students. It's a very simple drill. In fact, is some sort of a rope. And if you take that rope and you put it around your neck like that, and you get into your setup, I can see with my peripheral vision where the knots are. They are inside of my feet when I look down. So if I start over here, this knot moves to my right foot, if not slightly outside my right foot. So it's a great visual drill to get you to be more trail foot, lead foot balanced. Just like if I stood on this pressure mat, I am trail foot, lead foot balanced. Now I'm on my back foot, I'm on my lead foot. Now this particular student started with, if I had that rope on again, my strings, he started over here. He had no idea he was starting over there. I got him on the pressure mat, I put him in sports box, and I could show him that he was physically, pressure-wise, more on his trail foot, more into the ground on his trail side, but also that his right knee was outside his foot to start. So his right knee was outside his foot to start. So once you add momentum in terms of a backswing, that's gonna carry you more this way, and it's exactly what it did to him. So he set up here, he took the club back, and he got trapped on this side of the foot. So the mass, the trail hip, the knee got on this side of the foot, which he had no brace to work around. So you'll also notice with the sports box, he had, relatively speaking, he's a good athlete. He's very flexible, so he has decent amount of chest, shoulder, and pelvis or hip rotation off of the golf ball. But once we made the change, you'll see at the end of this video how much more rotation he naturally had in him, and he couldn't produce it before because of this setup piece right there. So how did we make this change? So again, I had him on the pressure mat. You can see I have more pressure into my trail foot, so the heat map on my right foot is a lot stronger. That knee is on the outside. So all I did was get the rope to work more towards the center. So all of a sudden he became more 50-50, but what was more important at that point, the pressure in his feet, specifically his right foot, got a little more on the inside. This knee got a little bit more underneath his big toe as opposed to outside his pinky toe, or the captain toe, for all you Seinfeld fans out there. So the knee is on the inside, so he now has a brace to rotate against, as opposed to being out here where he had no brace to rotate against. So once he created momentum, it forced the pelvis this way as he was trying to rotate. Now, what happens when the pelvis goes this way too much? You sure as heck have to get it back. So all of a sudden the pelvis starts to travel a lot towards the target, and what happens? You get a sway. So that's that look that you get in the golf swing. And this particular student had almost a 9-inch movement of the center of the pelvis from the furthest back to when he got back to impact, all while he's trying to rotate and get the club and do all of the other stuff. That's a moving target. The ball becomes essentially a moving target at that point. So we have to minimize everything. So I want all of you at home to get into your setup, put a rope on, get a hoodie on, get those strings equal at address. And again, I'm okay. I am perfectly okay with an iron to be slightly forward at address. Again, what is that gonna do? It's gonna keep the knee on the inside of the foot, and it's gonna make it easy to create rotation. Now, I'm not gonna go into the whole sequence of events and the rotation piece. I've done a couple videos on those, and I'll put a link down in the description to those if you wanna learn a little bit more about that rotation and that first move off the golf ball. But we need to be in a good setup position in order to produce this type of rotation, which in theory, you do all that right, you're gonna minimize the amount that the pelvis travels and slides overall, just like this student did. And it's amazing to see the outcome at the end of the day. He cut the amount of travel immediately in half. And you know what that ultimately did? It got his impact, it got his compression, it got his low point, it got his hand position, it got a lot of other things better because everything else started to self-organize around the fact that the body was rotating more this way and this way. And there's no question, there's pressure shifts going this way and this way as well. I'm not going to get into that. I've done a video on that. Go down below in the description and check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But ultimately, if you deal with a slide or a sway in your golf swing, you have to make sure in your address position, you are not starting on your trail foot. And especially, you are not starting with your knee and your trail hip on the outside of the center of your foot. You are not going to create a brace at that point to work around, and ultimately you're just going to move this way as the force and the momentum of the golf club comes off of the golf ball. So let's go back to the screen over there, and I'm going to show you the before and after of his golf swing after we changed the setup and we changed his understanding of how he creates movement off of the golf ball after getting into a good setup. So as I said before, I like to use real life scenarios in my videos where I take students and actual experiences and share them with you guys. And this is another perfect example of a great before and after making some adjustments with this player. So you see the two swings on the screen. This is the same exact player after making this setup adjustment that I was just talking about. So the one on the left is the before, the one on the right is after. And obviously visually you can see a pretty significant difference between those two. And I can even overlay them and you can definitely see that there is a difference between the two setups. If we take a look at the before, the center of the pelvis, where it is relative to where his hands are and where his setup is, center of pelvis has changed. Again, that was all about getting that right knee and that hip and getting the ropes a little bit more balanced from trail leg to lead leg and getting that pressure more balanced underneath his feet. So how did this affect everything else? I mean, that's good and great from an address standpoint, but how did this affect everything else? Well, take a look down below, and I'll pop it up on the screen here where it says pelvis sway. You'll notice that right now they are both at 0 inches because this is their starting point, just like I explained a little earlier in the video. Now I'm going to take the old one, the before, and we're going to go to the top. So there he is at the top of the swing. And again, you can see center of pelvis very close to the trail foot. The knee is a little bit on the outside. The hips have traveled pretty significantly. Then we take a look at the after. What a difference. Same position at the top of the golf swing. You'll notice his pelvis is actually slightly towards the target, which in a perfect world, this is where we want to be with most players. I'm not saying everybody, with most players. And I'm not going to go deep into that right now, but I did reference that a little bit in my pressure shift, weight shift video, so go check that out if you haven't. But that is a pretty darn significant difference just based on changing his setup and getting him to understand the cause and effect of that setup. Now, as he transitions back to the ball, you'll notice the pelvis has to slide dramatically, which slows the rotation down. He gets back to impact, 3.8. Again, almost 8 inches of travel. We take a look at the after. He has moved slightly more forward. Again, we're trying to get the center of mass, center of pressure with an iron in front of the golf ball, and you notice he achieved that. So he is 2.8 inches, so he has really only moved roughly 3-ish inches from start to finish, which is very good, very normal in the parameters that we're looking for. No one is ever going to stay completely still. It's just the way our bodies are. But we have simplified his golf swing overall, which is the reason why he is hitting the golf ball so much better right now. And at the end of this particular session, he was striking it more consistently than he ever had. And as a byproduct, he started to use the ground better. So he actually picked up a little bit more speed. And ultimately, we're going to monitor this as we go forward, as I work with him, to see how much more distance he actually picks up because of this. Remember, this is just one cause and effect. There are many other cause and effects in the big picture that can lead to pelvis sway and sliding and a lot of lateral motion. But I promise you, no matter what your issues are in your golf swing, if you set up to the golf ball better, you have a better chance to do whatever it is that you are struggling with in your swing much better. So do not forget to work on the basics.